My name is Emily Carter, and tonight I want to tell you something that still makes my chest feel heavy even now. Imagine being a young American girl standing inside her own house surrounded by laughter, voices and warmth, yet feeling like a shadow nobody sees. My mother hosted a huge family dinner. Relatives from across states filled every room. Long tables, food, memories, stories, hugs. Everything looked perfect from outside, but not once did my mother look at me. Not once did she ask me to sit beside her. Not once did she introduce me with pride. I stood there smiling, helping, serving, listening, while slowly realizing I was invisible in my own family. And that night changed the way I saw love forever. I was born in a small town in Ohio, and growing up I believed family meant safety. I believed mothers notice everything about their daughters. I was the quiet kind, the one who listened more than she spoke, the one who tried hard to make everyone comfortable. My mother was strong, respected in the family. The organizer, the leader, the woman everyone admired. Whenever family events happened, she became someone else, louder, happier, warmer, but only for others. I noticed this as a child, but I always told myself, one day she will see me, one day she will choose me. The dinner was supposed to be special. My mother had planned it for weeks. She called everyone, cousins, uncles, aunts, grandparents, even distant relatives. I helped her from morning till evening, cleaning, cooking, arranging chairs, decorating the house. My hands smelled like spices, my feet ached, but my heart was hopeful. I thought, maybe tonight she will say, Emily, this is my daughter. Maybe tonight I will sit beside her when guests arrive. When the doorbell started ringing, everything changed. My mother smiled wide, hugged everyone, praised their children, asked about their lives. I stood near the kitchen entrance holding trays and waiting for her eyes to meet mine, but they never did. She asked my cousin about college. She praised my welcome back to Revenge Water Official. If you are enjoying the content and want to support the journey, then make sure you hit that subscribe button right now and turn on all notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support helps Revenge Water Official grow and bring you even better videos every single day. So join the family today by clicking subscribe, and thank you for being part of the team. And cooking. She laughed loudly at jokes. She ignored my presence completely at dinner. The table was full. There was no seat saved for me. I stood behind, serving plates, refilling glasses. Nobody told me to sit. My mother did not notice, or maybe she chose not to. I finally sat on a small chair in the corner, eating quietly, watching everyone talk, feeling like I did not belong to the story of my own life. Something broke inside me that night, not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. I realized I had been trying for years to earn a place that should have been mine by birth. After that dinner, I changed, not on the outside but inside. I stopped expecting warmth from my mother. I stopped waiting for validation. I focused on myself, my education, my dreams. I enrolled in a community college while working part-time. I studied late nights alone. I paid my own fees. I learned independence the hard way. My mother still hosted events, still praised others, still ignored my achievements. When I told her I got a scholarship, she nodded and changed the topic. When relatives praised me, she smiled politely but never added a word. Years passed and I moved to another state for work. I built a life quietly. I grew confident. I learned self-respect. I learned that being unseen does not mean being unworthy. Then one year I was invited to another family gathering, this time at my mother's house again. I almost did not go, but something in me wanted closure. When I arrived, things felt the same at first, the noise, the laughter, the attention everywhere except on me, but this time I did not wait. I walked in with calm confidence. I greeted everyone. I sat where I wanted. I spoke when I wanted. I was no longer the invisible girl. Relatives asked about my life, my job, my independence. They admired my journey, my strength, my growth. My mother watched quietly from across the room. Something in her eyes changed: confusion, surprise, maybe regret. Later that night, she finally spoke to me alone. She asked about my life, her voice softer than I remembered. She said she never realized how distant she had been. She said she thought I was strong enough without her. I listened calmly, and for the first time I did not feel anger or pain. I felt peace. I realized I did not need her recognition anymore. I had already found my own worth. That huge family dinner years ago broke me, but it also built me. It taught me that sometimes being ignored is the push that turns a girl into a powerful woman. And even if your own family fails to see you, the world will when you learn to see yourself first. When I left my mother's house after that dinner, something inside me felt hollow, yet strangely awake, like I had finally accepted a truth I had been running from for years. I drove through quiet American streets with city lights reflecting on my windshield, and I remember gripping the steering wheel, asking myself why being invisible hurt more when the people around you are blood, not strangers. That night stayed with me. Every morning, every class, every shift at work, it replayed in my mind, not as anger but as a reminder that I was alone even when surrounded by family. I was still living in Ohio then, sharing a small apartment with peeling paint and old furniture that I bought from thrift stores. I worked at a local diner during the day and studied at night. My coworkers thought I was quiet but dependable. Customers liked me because I listened. My life became a cycle of work, study, sleep, and silence. My mother rarely called, and when she did, our conversations felt formal, like two people connected by obligation, not love. I remember one winter evening after a long shift my phone buzzed with a family group message, pictures from another gathering, smiles, plates of food, laughter frozen in time. I was not invited again, and for the first time I did not cry. I simply stared at the screen and placed the phone face down. Something inside me finally stopped begging. From that moment, I promised myself something simple but powerful. I would stop shrinking, I would stop waiting to be noticed. I would build a life so solid that no one's silence could shake it. I poured myself into my studies. Business management was not a dream, but it was practical and I needed stability. I stayed late at the library every night, American flags hanging outside the campus building, moving slowly in the cold wind while I sat under fluorescent lights fighting exhaustion. There were nights I fell asleep on textbooks and mornings I woke up before sunrise to catch the bus to work, but every sacrifice felt like a brick in the foundation of my future. One day my professor called me after class. He said, "Emily, you have leadership potential. Have you considered applying for an internship out of state?" His words surprised me. Nobody had ever spoken to me like that before, not with belief, not with certainty. I went home that night and filled out applications with shaking hands. Weeks later, an email arrived offering me an internship in Chicago. It felt unreal, a new city, a new chance, a place where nobody knew me as the quiet, ignored daughter. When I told my mother, she paused and said, "That is far, maybe later we will talk." There was no pride, no encouragement, just distance. But this time it did not stop me. Moving to Chicago changed everything. The city was loud, fast, full of strangers chasing dreams. I rented a tiny room in a shared apartment and walked through busy streets feeling small but free for the first time. Nobody compared me, nobody overlooked me. I was simply Emily. At the internship I worked harder than anyone else. I stayed late, volunteered for tasks, learned quickly. My supervisor noticed. And slowly trust turned into responsibility, responsibility into confidence. My voice grew stronger, my posture changed, my eyes no longer searched for permission. I made friends, coworkers who invited me to coffee, people who listened when I spoke and valued my thoughts. I realized how starved I had been for basic acknowledgement, and how powerful it felt to finally receive it. Months turned into a full-time job, then a promotion. I stood in a glass office overlooking the city one evening, watching the sun dip between buildings, thinking about the girl who once stood in a kitchen serving food. While being ignored, that girl felt distant, but I carried her strength inside me. My family heard about my success through relatives. Suddenly messages appeared, congratulations, pride emojis, questions about my life. My mother called more often, her voice warmer, curious. She asked about my job, my apartment, my future. I answered politely, but something had shifted. The balance had changed. I realized that part of my invisibility had come from my silence. I had allowed myself to fade because I thought love required patience, but love also requires presence and respect. One night after work, I walked alone along the river, lights reflecting on the water, and I whispered to myself, "I see you, Emily." And that was the moment I truly felt visible for the first time. The years after that realization unfolded quietly but powerfully, and for the first time in my life, I was not waiting for anyone to choose me. I was choosing myself every single day. I woke up in my Chicago apartment with sunlight slipping through the blinds, and instead of feeling small, I felt grounded. My routine became my anchor: morning coffee, work meetings, evening walks, and late night planning. I was building something that belonged only to me. My job grew demanding but fulfilling. I was trusted with projects, teams, decisions. People listened when I spoke and respected my ideas. Each success healed a small part of the girl who once stood invisible in her mother's kitchen. I stopped explaining my worth. I stopped apologizing for taking space. Eventually I was offered a leadership role, one that required confidence, strength, and presence. I accepted without hesitation. That decision alone showed me how far I had come, because the old Emily would have doubted herself, asked permission, waited for reassurance. This Emily stood firm. News of my progress reached my family faster. Now relatives began reaching out. Cousins I barely remembered praised my independence, asked for advice, admired my journey. And through them my mother watched from a distance. Her messages became longer, her calls more frequent, sometimes awkward, sometimes emotional. One evening she asked if she could visit me in Chicago. I paused before answering, not out of fear but clarity. I agreed because I no longer needed anything from her. I was complete on my own terms. When she arrived at my apartment, she looked around quietly, the modest furniture, the books, the city view. She said, "I never knew you lived like this." Her voice carried something unfamiliar, humility, maybe regret. We sat together drinking tea. And for the first time she listened, truly listened, as I spoke about my struggles, my loneliness, my growth. I did not accuse, I did not raise my voice, I simply told my truth. She admitted she had always seen me as strong, independent, self-sufficient, and assumed I did not need her attention. She said she gave love loudly to others because she thought I was fine in silence. Hearing that did not erase the past, but it gave it meaning. I told her something I had never said before. I told her that silence can be heavier than rejection, and that being ignored hurts deeper than being criticized. She cried quietly and reached for my hand. A gesture that once would have meant everything now felt gentle but not necessary. Forgiveness did not come as a dramatic moment, it came as a calm understanding. I forgave her not to heal her but to free myself. Months later, another huge family dinner happened, this time hosted by a relative. I attended not as the invisible girl but as my self-confident, calm whole. When I entered, conversations paused, heads turned, smiles appeared. My mother introduced me proudly. "This is my daughter Emily. She works in Chicago. She built her life on her own." I smiled, politely grateful but not dependent. As the night went on, I noticed a younger cousin standing quietly in the corner watching others laugh, and something stirred inside me. I walked over, spoke to her, asked about her dreams. I saw myself in her eyes and I understood the cycle and the power of breaking it. That night, as I drove back through American streets glowing under city lights, I felt no pain, no anger, only peace. I realized that sometimes life makes you invisible, so you can learn to see yourself clearly. I am Emily Carter, an American girl who was ignored at her own family dinner, but found her voice, her worth, and her future, not through revenge, not through validation, but through self-respect. And if anyone listening feels unseen, know this: your silence does not define you, your strength does, and one day, the world will notice what you always had inside you all along.